The whole office made fun of the cleaner, but the boss invited her to a meeting and they were terrified. The whole office made fun of the cleaning lady, but the boss invited her to a meeting and many were surprised. Maria, the cleaning lady, was rarely seen. In the offices of a construction company, dressed in her work uniform and yellow gloves, the young woman struggled, without much encouragement, to remove the dust from the windows, the dirt from the floor, and the garbage from all the garbage cans. It is hard to tell if Maria liked her job. She always worked in absolute silence and did not disturb the other employees with empty chatter. The bosses had no complaints about Maria, and she always completed her tasks and kept the office sparkling clean. Most of the employees called Maria by another name, and the rest didn't even know her name. The workdays were passing for Maria, and the next day was almost the same as the previous one. One day, while cleaning the office of one of the bosses, Maria accidentally overheard a strange conversation. Sitting at the table, the boss and his assistant were talking animatedly and gesticulating excessively. "What am I supposed to do now? How are we going to negotiate that?" asked Elliot. Sure, in desperation and given his leadership skills, the company had emerged successful in recent years, but the boss's ire stemmed from negotiations they had begun with two important representatives of a company in China. Apparently, the translator had been ill for several days with a sore throat and was being admitted to the hospital. "I don't know, ma'am. Maybe we should bring an outside translator into the company or contact a translation company," guiltily proposed Arthur Johnson, who combined the position of assistant manager with that of head of human resources. "Well, I've seen what the job is like. These translations are complex to get a good understanding of what the other employers are talking about. There are simpler languages, such as French or Spanish, and this is Chinese. It is difficult to find a good translator who knows the language," said Mr. Claro with a somewhat hesitant voice. At that moment, Maria, who had overheard the whole conversation accidentally, stared at her superiors. "Is everything clean?" I asked the chief deputy of the young woman, who felt a little embarrassed and simply continued cleaning while saying, "Yes, I'm just finishing, Mr. Johnson, but what I want to tell you is, if you need a translator, I can help you." "What do you mean? You will communicate with Chinese businessmen with sign language?" the boss said jokingly. Maria felt confused with the answer and blushed even more. "No, sir, I know that language very well and I can help you with that," Maria replied. Trying to contain their excitement, the boss and his deputy looked at each other, incredulous at what they had just heard. Then the master went to the safe he had in the office and took out of it a printed copy in Chinese of the contract, handed it to the cleaner and said, "It's all yours. You can read it and now you can translate it." To the surprise of the men, Maria took the sheet full of hieroglyphics and full of confidence began to read. Then, without hesitation, she translated everything she had read and found the spelling mistakes in the text. The boss and the deputy were transfixed by what young Maria had just done. "Where did you get that Chinese language skill and why are you working as a simple office cleaner?" asked Elliot Clark. In response to this, the young woman smiled shyly and shrugged her shoulders. The head of the company knew he was risking the company's reputation by hiring a cleaner to finalize some negotiations with a major company, but after thinking about it, he decided to take a chance. "Well, Maria, I will give you a chance to prove yourself, and tomorrow you can participate in the meeting with the Chinese company. Now finish your work and go with Mr. Johnson to a store to buy some clothes. You can't go to a business meeting in your uniform like that." Smiling, Maria nodded her head with resignation and went to change her clothes. Half an hour later, Maria, the boss, and her deputy were in a shopping mall to find the right clothes. The saleswoman at the store appreciated Maria's slim figure and quickly brought the perfect office attire the young girl needed. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson smiled as he watched Maria show off her new outfit, giving a thumbs up in approval. "What a beautiful woman works for us as a cleaner," thought the man as he dropped Maria off at her home. The young woman lived in a rented apartment on the outskirts of town. As they said goodbye, Arthur Johnson reminded the new translator of the time she was to report to the office. After this, he left in his luxury car. The next day, Maria woke up earlier than usual and began to dress up. After an hour in the mirror, she put on her new office attire and left for work. During the meeting, Mr. Clark and his deputy were full of nerves about the outcome. But in spite of all fears, Maria coped brilliantly with her task and the representatives of the Chinese company were very pleased to have her as a translator. The young woman showed a profound command of the foreign language. "Congratulations, Maria. I am honest. I did not expect all this. I think you should think about studying," said the boss, feeling very satisfied. "I am very grateful, sir. Of course, that would be very nice," replied Maria. "If you can finish your studies and have a diploma, I will hire you as a full-time translator." In response to this, she timidly raised her hand and said, "I don't have any of those documents right now." "Well, Maria, when you can bring those documents, rest assured that you will be hired. After what you have done today, you have left me amazed." Maria exhaled in relief, and after asking permission from her superiors, she left the office. Meanwhile, the boss, who had been left pensive by the previous conversation, ordered his assistant to gather all the information from the mysterious cleaner. He did not know how a young woman who knew Chinese had ended up as a cleaner. Arthur Johnson happily agreed to perform his hidden research task. Partially, he wanted to please his boss and be a good employee, but on the other hand, he was interested in Maria. He wanted to know more about her, especially now that she had gone from being a simple cleaner to being the prettiest girl in the office. It took Arthur a week to gather all the necessary information. And when he had it, he walked into his boss's office with the folder in his hands and with a satisfied smile said, "Here's everything, Mr. Clark. I think we'd better let Maria know, so she can tell you everything," suggested the deputy. The chief agreed. They called Maria to come to the chief's office. Faced with the two men, she didn't know where to begin her story, but finally, plucking up the courage, she began to speak. Her full name was Maria White. Her father was a multimillionaire businessman, and at the age of 42, he lost his wife due to a complicated childbirth. However, doctors managed to save the baby girl born from the couple. He had been trying for a long time to have a child, and when the longed-for moment arrived, Amanda White's health deteriorated due to the hormone therapy she had undergone. John White was plunged into depression for 6 months after his wife's death. But afterwards, the man found the strength and motive to live by caring for his daughter despite her mother's absence since she was a little girl. Maria was surrounded by care, tenderness, and love. The child had a lovely nanny, Mrs. Reynolds, who loved her as if she were her own daughter. Everything was going well until the father brought his new wife to the place. By a strange coincidence, the new wife looked like her late mother's twin and was even named after her, Amanda. With the appearance of the stepmother in the house, the atmosphere began to fill with uncomfortable moments. From the first minute Amanda set foot in the house, the nanny and child were considered her enemies. Mrs. Reynolds immediately saw the new wife's intentions and tried to prevent them from being carried out. But Mr. White loved Amanda and would not allow anyone to speak ill of her. The new wife had some big hidden plans. She knew that the millionaire widower she had married had some important financial shares and wanted to get rich with them. So when a couple of years had passed and Maria had grown up, Amanda suggested to her husband to send the girl to study in England. This way he would get rid of Maria and the nanny at the same time. Mr. White considered accepting his wife's proposal and without hesitation bought Maria a ticket to London. However, the girl received an exquisite education, which included learning several languages. Unfortunately, in that period of time, her father had health problems, aggravated with chest pain. While his daughter was studying abroad, John White became a frequent visitor of the cardiology department of a private clinic. But despite all efforts on the part of the doctors, at the next fatal heart attack Mr. White had, the ruthless Amanda did not bother to inform Maria of her father's passing. It was thanks to a call from the nanny that Maria came to learn of this terrible tragedy. She had been orphaned. When Maria returned to her homeland, her father's body was already buried. Without allowing Maria to be there for his last goodbye, Amanda informed her that her father had decided to leave his beloved wife his entire fortune. "How is that possible, and where is the copy of the will?" said Maria shyly. But Amanda did not want to hear anything and just let Maria spend one night in her house and in the next morning threw her out of there herself. At the same time, all the papers and documents Maria was carrying disappeared from her purse. Left on the street, Maria decided to look for a job and then she would see what she could do. That's how Maria ended up working as a cleaner in an office of a construction company, giving her best. After listening to the young woman's story, the chief deputy paused and then said something that almost made Maria faint. "Actually, Amanda cheated you, Mrs. White. Her father left all his fortune to his daughter," said Arthur Johnson. After being interrupted by the voice of the chief, who said, "Mr. Johnson, I think you should help this lady," and the chief deputy nodded his head, and without missing a beat proceeded to foreclose the next day. Several policemen showed up at Amanda's house and, under the warrant, helped the woman move out of the house she had illegally appropriated. It turned out that the cunning widow was living there with the lover she had had for as long as she had been married to John White. Now that justice had finally been served, everything was back in its place. Mary now lived in the house that had been her home for many years. The boss had not hesitated for a second to help the cleaner. By his actions, he gained Maria's sympathy and the affection became mutual. Now with the life ahead of them, young people can fill it with moments of joy and sincere feelings. It is quite comforting to know that a story had a happy ending and justice was done. Friends, if you liked today's video, just give it a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you can receive more content like this. Best regards and see you next time.